moved up in the ranks there, and she really enjoyed her job. Suddenly, I received word from her and others that she was going to be the executive director of Catholic Charities of Idaho for the entire state. And I said, why are you doing that? She said, I'm called to do this, I think, and I'm really excited about this job. And she did that for about 2 years, and then she made a change again, and so we're talking, and she's going back to the Department of Health and Welfare again to do a different role this time. But she said, that was fun, but that just didn't quite work out, and I want to do this other thing. So she was doing that, and a couple of weeks ago, I saw on Twitter that somebody was congratulating her on a new job. And so I immediately sent her an email, and I said, hey, don't you know what you want to be when you grow up? And she responded back and said, well, I'm not exactly sure. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm really excited about this new job, and it's working in the state of Idaho. Hopefully I'm not causing that. And anyway, she's really excited about her new job. But that dialogue was going back and forth, and I'm thinking, how many times are you going to go back and forth? So I know other people that have done the same thing too. You think you found the job, and then a couple years later it's like not working out so well, and you find another job, and it's not working out so well. And anyway, in line of what I want to be when I grow up, and as we all ask that question, I heard a sermon just last summer, I guess it was, that I'm kind of copying a little bit of, I guess. But I thought it fit with the experience and just the culture that we have here and what's going on. So I'm going to try to adapt it to the experience a little bit too. When we look in the Bible to try to figure out, okay, what is our calling? What are we supposed to be doing? There's some examples that we could look at. And so let's take a look at a couple of those. What scares me a little bit when I do this is, where's the bar going to be, low or high, and how do I fit into that? So if you look at some of the great leaders in the Bible, I'm going to look at Moses in Exodus 3:10 to start with. I mean, this is the story of the burning bush. And so Moses is wandering around in the wilderness, leading sheep around, which is, a great job to have. Probably a little smelly once in a while, a little dirty. But think about who this guy was. He was a guy in that culture, in that time, that was probably a West Point graduate or maybe a Harvard graduate. I mean, he'd been educated in Egypt, the best schools in the world at the time probably. So he had a high education, and he was herding sheep in the wilderness. God called to him in that burning bush, and the call is a little scary. God is speaking to Moses and says, therefore, come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Now, I'm not a Bible historian, but I think that we're talking about a couple million people. And this guy was highly educated and everything, but God's telling him, I want you to go do this job directly. I mean, it's not like, I think maybe I should do this. It's like God is saying, Moses, go do this. And we know the rest of the story. Moses says, no, not me. I stutter. I can't speak well. I'm afraid. These guys want to kill me. I mean, he starts trying to wiggle out of it. But eventually he went and did that. Another guy that was asked to do something. Genesis 6, we see a little glimpse of Noah. This is the chapter that's talking about Noah. And Noah was a righteous man. And God called him, and after some talking, God said, Noah, make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make an ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and outside with pits. I don't know if there was a body of water close by where he was at, but this was a big boat. This was not just a fishing boat that people were used to seeing. 450 feet long. That's a football field and a half. 75 feet wide, and probably over 4 stories high, 45 feet high. This is a big boat. Now, I've tried to take on some carpentry projects around the house, and he's already smiling. And that's exactly what happens. It's like, maybe Ed got it done. Was it perfect? Not even close, because I am not a carpenter at all. My son-in-law is a great carpenter. He makes furniture, he can build a house, he can do everything. But I don't know if Noah was a carpenter or not, but he got this thing done. The interesting difference between Noah and Moses is Noah didn't try to get out of it at all. He just said, yes, Lord, I'll do it, and started building a boat. Even though initially everybody, and maybe even Noah, was going, I wonder why I'm doing this, because it's in the middle of the desert, or there's certainly not a lake around. What's going on? But for God to tell me to go build a boat, that would be intimidating, for sure. I don't want God to tell me that. Please don't tell me that. Let's look at one more guy. A guy named Gideon in Judges 6:14. Kind of similar in a way to Moses, because the Lord is asking him to do something with the children of Israel. The Lord looked at Gideon and said, go in this your strength and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have I not sent you? And of course, Gideon's response is, oh man, don't send me. My tribe is the lowest clan in Israel. And I'm the lowest guy in my clan. I am nobody. Don't send me. And so, just like Moses, they have a little discussion, and eventually Gideon does what he's supposed to do. So if we just look at those three people and think, okay, those are great things, in my opinion. I mean, leading a couple million people, trying to save them from somebody that wants them to be slaves, or building a big boat or something like that. That's just discouraging to me. If I think that God's trying to ask me to do stuff like that, because I just don't feel equipped. And I know God can do anything, but that's going to be a tall order and a big miracle if I'm going to do that. So I'm wondering if perhaps I'm making this whole what does God want me to do a little too difficult. And so there's some other stories we can look at in the Bible too about what God has called people to do. And when I start looking at some other people, to me personally, that helps me to feel a little more comfortable and not quite so intimidated with what God's asking me to do. There were a couple of maybe work buddies that were just hanging out with another guy one day. And suddenly that guy said, hey, look. And this story is in John 1, verse 40. John the Baptist is preaching, and Andrew and another guy who's following John the Baptist at the time hears John say that Jesus is coming. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. At this point, we don't really know who Peter is, but I think this is just for reference that they're talking about this. Let's go to verse 41 and 42. So, Andrew heard John say that this was Jesus. And something inside of Andrew felt compelled to follow him. And so Andrew and this guy that he was with, his work buddy, followed Jesus that day. It was in the afternoon, and they hung out for several hours. After that experience, Andrew felt compelled to do something with what he found. And so this text, he went immediately first, it says, he first found his own brother, Simon Peter, and said to him, we have found the Messiah. Verse 42,